All right, we're coming to you live on KHOU 11 Plus with breaking news coverage. Multiple people are hurt following a boiler explosion at a Holiday Inn Express that's under construction downtown. This viewer video showing the scene about an hour and a half ago. This all developing in the last hour and a half or so. I'm Ron Trevino.
And I'm Marcelino Benito. It all happened here off Texas Avenue at Austin Street. That's in the heart of downtown, right across from Irma's restaurant. And we know it's 2 blocks from Dyken Park. It's a busy part of town. You see it on the map there. Houston Fire telling us that this call came in around 11 this morning. Now, here's what we know right now. Houston Fire also telling us the initial call came in as a high-rise fire. We know debris fell from the building to the ground during that explosion. But fortunately, no pedestrians were injured. There are, however, several construction workers who are hurt.
We want to send things over to Jason Miles now.
He's been speaking with the Houston Fire Department, and he has some new details on those injuries. Jason?
Yeah, the Houston Fire Department Communications Director Brent Taylor is here with me live right now. We're in front of this hotel that was set to open soon, I understand. That'll probably be pushed back. But Brent, again, summarize what happened this morning.
So HFD was called out at 11:08 this morning to a high-rise on fire. When we got here, you can see from the damage here, it's a little more than a fire. It's some type of apparent explosion. The walls have kind of buckled out and windows are blown out, things like that. So what we understand is that the building is not occupied. The only people who were inside at the time were the people who were working on the construction project here. And essentially we have now 6 injuries, 6 people who were transported to Memorial Hermann in the Med Center with injuries from that explosion. These are going to be things like burns, lacerations, cuts, things along those lines of varying severities.
Nothing life-threatening as far as you know?
Nothing that's been communicated to me that way, no.
And I know the initial information suggested it may have been a boiler, but that's still to be determined as well?
Right, and so we have a couple different investigating groups that are going to be out here on this one. The HFD Arson will determine the cause and origin of the fire. We also have our Life Safety Bureau, so that's going to be the inspectors from the fire department, as well as inspectors from the Public Works permitting process as well, who are going to figure out exactly what happened, how safe it is, and when things can go back to what they were doing before.
Can you kind of summarize the response? A lot of personnel here. I guess initially when you hear explosion or fire in a high rise, it prompts a pretty big response.
Exactly. So you've got kind of your standard response that we would have for a house fire, apartment fire, then that escalates with a high rise, and then because there was a report of explosion, we also had hazmat that was added. Fortunately, there are no outside threats at this point. Aside from the review on the structural integrity of the building that will keep the streets nearby closed for a while, we're talking hours, days possibly, that until we get a good understanding from all the departments of how safe it is and what needs to happen if anything to continue.
Needless to say, this will impact rush hour today.
Oh, for sure. Definitely if you're coming through downtown, if this is part of your normal way out, find another way, pack your patience. It's going to be a pain, but Houston is what we do. We get through it.
And as far as, once your crews arrived, injured people had already evacuated, or did you guys have to assist in that?
I believe it was a mix of the two. Some people had gotten out of the house, and then we assisted others in getting down.
What's next? Again, you have multiple crews moving forward with various investigations.
Right, exactly. So arson, they're here from the jump, basically. They got here very early in this one, and we're working to determine exactly what caused that fire and subsequent explosion, as well as the structural integrity of the building, if any other impacts happen outside of the property that need to be addressed. And so that's kind of where we're going from here.
I don't think you have this information, but I've read that this hotel was expected to open as soon as this month or next month. You don't know for sure, right?
I haven't heard that yet, no, couldn't say.
Not your bailiwick. Also, other agencies could come down and be involved, including OSHA.
That's possible.
And they obviously work from a federal perspective on like workplace safety type stuff, right?
Yeah, right. I would anticipate we would see those kind of folks come down to make sure, again, that everything is, and contacting the property owners, nearby property owners, things like that, if there are any threats beyond the building. But at this time, we believe it's just going to be isolated to the one building.
Houston Fire Department Communications Director Brent Taylor, thanks for joining us live.
Thank you.
Appreciate the information. I have spoken with several people. There are apartment buildings catty corner to the Holiday Inn Express that was set to open over here behind my photographer, and over here a building called the Catalyst. I just spoke with a gentleman here who lives on like the 16th or 17th floor, so he's basically parallel with where the explosion happened on the top floor of the soon to open hotel, or it was soon to open. He told me, say if the Astros were still in the playoffs, potentially this area could have had a bunch of pedestrians milling about outside. If it was a little closer to the lunch hour, it could have been a lot busier. But this is kind of set apart from the main central business district, as it were. We're pretty close to the courthouses. But the main attraction really close to us is Daikin Park. The GRB is not too far away. We've seen some conventioneers coming to their various hotels, coming from the GRB, I assume, looking up and saying, oh, wow, why is the hotel I'm staying at cordoned off? So they're trying to get to other areas around this blocked intersection, so interrupting their plans a little bit. But yeah, according to the guy who lives in the Catalyst building, this could have been a potentially very, very worse situation if you had dozens, if not more, pedestrians out on the street as all of this debris, glass, and other material fell to the street, guys.
And Jason, if the camera can tilt up to the roof again, I mean, you still have that major bulge of siding on the side of that building that we can assume has not been secured yet. They said they were going to block that street for hours or maybe days. I would guess it's probably days.
Yeah, Ron, if you can tilt back down, you can see because this was an active construction site, you had these temporary like Jersey wall barriers up, you had some fencing up. So the immediate street level sidewalk was already protected because of the construction project. So presumably if any of that stuff fell down, it would fall down pretty straight down. Now with an explosion, it obviously burst out, and even I've seen debris, it appears, from this building across the street in front of this other hotel, the Cambria Hotel, which is undergoing some sort of minor cosmetic construction at this moment as well. You see the covered sidewalk there, the protective sidewalk in front of that building. But definitely some of this glass and other debris went across the street in multiple directions. So yeah, it could have been a really worse situation had the sidewalks had been packed, like for instance, on a day the Astros are playing.
And Jason, we heard that there were 6 injuries, folks transported to the hospital. Do we have any idea where those construction workers were in the actual building? You mentioned that it could have been a boiler towards the top of the building, the 17th floor. But do we know where in the building these construction workers may have been when they succumbed to their injuries?
My understanding is they were on the top floor where the actual bulging is noticeable on the building. I did happen to speak with a couple of other construction workers who were inside the building in other parts of the building when this happened. They can't speak on camera because of their employment situation, they said, but they told me they definitely heard the boom and saw other workers scatter. He says there wasn't that many workers on the floor he was on. He happens to work in the fire alarm business, so I guess they were addressing some of the fire alarms in what would be a brand new hotel. But he said people started scattering, they all came out, many self-evacuated onto the street. His understanding is that some of the injured workers came down themselves, others perhaps had to be helped, as you heard Brent Taylor mention. Still no word on the extent of those injuries, but yeah, there were other workers in the building at the time, but my understanding is those who were injured and transported were on that exact floor where this happened, although some debris may have fallen onto the floor below because of the explosion.
And we have to reiterate again, Jason, that the fire department spokesperson said that he hadn't heard anything that indicated that these were life-threatening injuries.
That's right. Hopefully that's the case with an explosion like this, because you don't see a lot of fire damage or smoke damage. So in my mind, I think maybe a kind of a flash explosion in layman's terms. So something that could have potentially created like a flash fire. So you may have those kinds of burns, but certainly not a lot of significant fire damage other than the explosion damage, which causes the bulging and the broken glass and things like that. And he even said that it's still to be determined if it is in fact a boiler. Of course, in my mind, I think boilers are in basements, generally speaking, so it'll be interesting to see exactly what exploded up on the top floor.
And Jason, one final question for you. Our partners at the Houston Business Journal reporting that this hotel was under construction, started back in October of 2023, was supposed to open sometime this month. I'm just curious, visually, I was watching your reports during the noon newscast. Visually, does it look like the hotel was pretty close to completion? Obviously, this is going to delay any reopening that may have been happening later this month, but visually, what does it look like to you about how close they were?
Yeah, visually to me, it looks like it was ready to open. You see the awning out front. The entrance to the lobby still has some work to be done. Pretty much just cosmetic kind of veneer type work on that awning. But other than that, looking at the building, it looks like a hotel that might be open right now. And you know, if you're talking this month or next month, that means the final stages of construction and getting ready were underway. So yeah, it looks like a ready to open hotel to me from the outside at least.
And Jason, you know, you cover stories, a lot of stories having to do with buildings under construction or the, you know, just architecture here in Houston. As we all know, we got the World Cup coming next year. This isn't the only hotel in downtown that's under construction, but it's probably the biggest project, is it not?
Yeah, and I guess I kind of forgot about it. I mean, coming back and forth from the courthouse, you notice construction projects and things. I used to reside downtown, so I kept up more with what was happening exactly in the downtown area. But this, like many things around Houston, things seem to pop up out of nowhere. Obviously, this has been under construction for a while. I think previously this was a paid surface parking lot, if I'm not mistaken. Decades ago, it could have been the home to some other building, who knows. But on either side of each street across from this hotel, you have everything from government offices to the Cambria Hotel, which is in a former office building. It was a conversion project. You have the Catalyst apartments, and then you have 1414 Texas, I think they're called now, another apartment complex. So a very busy area from time to time, but it's Houston in the middle of the afternoon. Office workers more on the other side of downtown near the theater district might be in the tunnels during this time of day, not necessarily on this side of downtown. Most folks who go to the courthouse for the courthouse, then go back to their cars. Like we said earlier, if it had been on a day the Astros were still playing, it could have been a much different story. And for that matter, rush hour, you could have had, you know, bumper to bumper traffic in this area that could have been impacted as well.
Well, this was supposed to open sometime this month. Safe to say it's not going to open, at least on schedule anymore. Jason Miles, thanks so much for your live reporting. Now, we heard from Brent Taylor with the Houston Fire Department talking about how this will impact the rush hour. So officials are asking you to continue to avoid this area so they can do their work. Right now, Texas, Caroline, San Jacinto, and Austin streets are all closed. If you do need to get around, it's suggested that you take Fannin or La Branch.
Yeah, people who live nearby heard the explosion. Sherman Chow spoke to Paul Navahar earlier during our noon newscast about what he saw.
The building that's under construction is the Holiday Inn. I live at the Catalyst, so it's across the street, and my apartment is on the 17th floor, facing Dyken Park. So it's the next street behind. It's the next street. It's the next building over behind me.
Okay, I think I know where you are there. Yeah, across from Dyken Park. So 17th floor, you've got a pretty good vantage point. What did you see happen this morning?
Yeah, so just after 11 o'clock, I was watching TV, kind of just hanging out with my dog, and I heard a loud boom, which at first I thought it was something that fell off the building because, you know, we're used to construction noise that's been going on for months. And it wasn't immediately at first that I knew it was an explosion until I walked outside, and I have a wraparound balcony. So I went to the side where I could see the building, and at that point I could see, you know, glass raining down, and you know, parts of the building were kind of like flapping in the breeze. So that's when I knew there must have been some kind of explosion.
Okay. I don't know if you happen to have your television off, but we do have a live shot now of the damage there on the top floor of that Holiday Inn Express. And yeah, we can see what you're talking about when you say, you know, part of the structure sort of maybe flapping in the wind there, because across that top floor, wrapping around the corner, you can see the windows, the walls have been blown out there. Relative to your apartment, is this a few floors above or below you, your vantage point?
So if I believe it's an 18-story building, from what I've been told. So I'm on the 17th floor of the building right across the street. So I'm like almost parallel with where the explosion happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm in front of my TV. You see where it's hanging out. You can see where that's what I saw was like part of the building on both sides. And then when I went down to the street level, I got there early enough to where the workers were still kind of evacuated around the building. And a couple of the guys I talked to said that they were on the floor, and that they believe parts of the building, you know, the ceiling collapsed in on them. And so I asked, did anyone get hurt? And they're like, I don't know. We just ran out of there as fast as we could.
Wow, yeah. We are hearing that several ambulances actually made the scene and that there were injuries and people were transported. Did you see any of that activity?
I did. I was downstairs on the street level already before the first responders even showed up. So yeah, I saw multiple ambulances, multiple fire trucks, multiple emergency vehicles were all in pursuit and were arriving within minutes of the actual initial explosion.
Sounds like Paul had a pretty up-close vantage point to this explosion earlier this afternoon. Again, these are pictures from Air 11 from earlier this afternoon. Let's recap what we know, Ron. Holiday Inn Express under construction downtown on the corner of Texas and Austin Avenue. An explosion, we're told, on the 17th floor, likely involving a boiler that ended up sending 6 construction workers to the hospital.
And again, we're not sure. There's no official word on what caused the explosion. Of course, arson is investigating, as they do all explosions and fires in Houston. But when something's under construction, all it takes is one spark. We've seen this in the past, and construction workers. Maybe it was somebody welding something, who knows? But all it takes is one spark, and when you're dealing with construction material and the tools that these construction workers use. But the good news so far is that we haven't heard anything about life-threatening injuries. So these 6 construction workers were all transported to the Texas Medical Center with injuries consistent with an explosion. So we're talking about cuts and lacerations and things of that nature. And so hopefully they're being taken well taken care of there in the Texas Medical Center.
And we see that this happened. You and I know this area well, in a very busy part of downtown Houston. A lot of apartment buildings, a lot of hotels in that area. Just 2 blocks from Dyken Park. Happened around 11:08 when that call came in. So you can imagine maybe happening an hour later how much busier this area, this part of town, could have been. We know debris fell from the 17th floor after that explosion onto the roadway, and fortunately no pedestrians, no one on the ground was hurt as a result.
Thank goodness, because it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a busy time of the day, but it was not. So to give you a better orientation of what we're talking about here, so this is an area of downtown that's close to Dyken Park, just west of Discovery Green, I believe. So it's an area, if you're from here, you know the area we're talking about, and it's a very popular area. All right, well, the explosion caused people to go onto the streets to check things out. We've got some interviews with them.
Police blocked the streets. It was a worker inside the building with a generator and then make a big explosion. So a piece of the building land in the middle of the street.
We also know Jason spoke with another witness who heard the explosion. Take a listen to that.
We just heard an explosion, and that was it. Yeah.
What did it sound like?
Like a boom.
And
Yeah.
What, you looked out or came out?
No, when we started hearing the helicopters and everything, we like, something is wrong, so we came out to see.
And they say some sort of explosion took place at the top of this hotel, construction workers injured.
Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, I see all that, yeah.
Is it kind of scary?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit.
Several construction workers were injured, no one on the street or anything. I mean, some certain times of day, this is a busy area, especially if like an Astros game or something, but fortunately this time of day it wasn't that busy.
Right, yeah.
Are you glad nobody else was hurt?
Oh, yeah, most definitely, yeah. So I hope everybody survives.
All right, so no word of any fatalities, but even that person on the ground didn't really know what happened. A lot of people who were around downtown, maybe they heard something, but they didn't really know. Let's get back over to Jason Miles, though.
Yeah, he's been speaking with the Houston Fire Department. Jason, you were one of the first reporters on scene shortly after this happened. Walk us through what you know.
Well, imagine if you're sitting in your apartment downtown and you hear a big boom. You don't necessarily know where it's coming from. One person I spoke with said they thought it may have been related to the actual construction project itself. I guess indirectly it may have been, but he didn't really notice anything until he looked out of his window and saw, wow, those windows are busted out. That must have been where the boom came from, which makes sense. And here's another look from the street perspective of the damage on the top floor of this soon-to-open hotel. You see it on both sides of this building. Some of the exterior stucco material bulging out. On another side of the building, shattered windows, and in fact, there are 2 windows with absolutely no glass at all. I assume that was completely blown out during this incident. And again, the latest from HFD is that 6 workers were transported. No information on the extent of their injuries. They are still trying to determine exactly what exploded. Initial information suggests a boiler, but they're not saying that definitively at this point. Some of those injured evacuated themselves. It appears as if first responders had to help others out of this building, and obviously they swept it and made sure everyone was out just as a precaution, even though the lower floors were presumably not impacted at all. And I just learned that it appears as if the ceiling on that top floor, or part of the roof, collapsed as well as a result of the explosion, which is not shocking, obviously, when you have that type of event in a confined space like that. But obviously when something explodes, things go flying, and in this case, some material appears to have even flown out into the street and across the street and landed on the sidewalk. Guys?
Jason Miles, thanks so much for your live reporting. Again, we've heard from Jason that this is likely going to take all day to clear this area for this investigation to be concluded. So if you're out and about in the downtown area, avoid Texas and Austin, that general part of Daikin Park, if you know it well, best to stay away.
Yeah, because it could be closed down for hours or days. Okay, we're talking about the 1300 block of Texas Avenue. So earlier we were hearing from officials basically telling us, I mean, if you live in downtown, or if you're heading there, or if you're working in downtown right now, you might want to avoid Texas, Caroline, Austin, and San Jacinto. Well, we're going to wrap it up right now, but if there's any news conferences later, of course, we'll stream it online. But otherwise, we're going to be following this story throughout the day. Make sure to keep it right here on KH.